Hello, I'm Dennis Taylor, and welcome to the Opera Den. Today's program is an extension of two previous presentations. 3 years ago, I introduced African American concert and opera singers from 1850 to 1955. That program focused on singers such as Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield, Cissy Retta Jones, Paul Robeson, and Marian Anderson. In 2022, I featured the next generation of singers from Camilla Williams, Leontine Price, George Shirley, and Grace Bumbry. Today's program is in response to feedback about singers I did not include in those two presentations. While a few of these singers may not be as well known as some of those previously covered, their contributions to the opera world are still noteworthy. Florence Cole was born in Detroit in 1890 to parents who were both talented singers. She began her musical training in piano and voice at a very early age. The family moved to Los Angeles when she was 8. While still in high school, she worked with highly regarded voice teachers. After attending the University of Southern California, she toured with a troupe of Jubilee singers throughout North America. She furthered her vocal studies at Chicago Musical College and made solo appearances in several major cities where she received positive reviews. In 1919, she began her recording career and in 1921 worked with Black Swan Records. This record label was named in honor of Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield, a 19th century opera singer who had been given the unfortunate nickname the Black Swan by a music critic. In 1925, Cole-Talbert appeared in opera houses in Europe, and in March 1927 became the first African American to sing the title role in Verdi's Aida in southern Italy. Starting in 1930, she turned to teaching and mentoring the next generation of singers, where she taught in several historically black colleges for many years. Her most notable protege was Marian Anderson. There are very few extant recordings, but this one from 1921 gives us a hint of the agility and range of her voice. Here's an excerpt from the Belle Song from the opera Lakme by Leo Delibes. Jules Bledsoe was born in Waco, Texas in 1897. He loved to sing from his earliest years and sang in the local Baptist church at the age of 5. After high school, he studied music at Bishop College, where he graduated in 1918. In 1920, he began his study of medicine at Columbia University. Bledsoe's career as a medical student was short-lived as he became more interested in a singing career. He studied with some well-known musicians and made his professional debut in New York in 1924. In 1926, he sang his first leading role in the musical Deep River. Positive reviews from this performance led to Bledsoe landing the role of Joe in a 1927 production of Showboat, and later a film production of that musical. His interpretation of the song Old Man River was highly regarded. In 1932, the Metropolitan Opera was planning to stage the operatic version of The Emperor Jones, in which the title character is a black man. The NAACP wrote an impassioned letter to the company recommending either Jules Bledsoe or Paul Robeson for this role. Instead, the Met awarded the role to Lawrence Tibbett, an excellent singer, but a white man who wore dark makeup. Bledsoe found better opportunities for himself in Europe, where he sang operas, song recitals, and spirituals. Here he is in costume as he performed The Emperor Jones in Amsterdam in 1934. Bledsoe moved to Los Angeles in 1940 and starred in several films. In 1943, he toured the country selling war bonds. Unfortunately, during this tour, he suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and died at the young age of 45. Here's a video clip from the 1929 film of Showboat with the original Broadway cast. Dorothy Maynor was born in Norfolk, Virginia in 1910 and grew up singing in her father's church choir. Her singing talent was recognized by a high school teacher who recommended she study at the nearby Hampton Institute. Over the next several years, she sang in a choir and performed at Carnegie Hall, as well as a 40-city tour of Europe. In 1935, she earned a bachelor's degree in choral conducting at Westminster Choir College in Princeton, New Jersey. She furthered her studies in New York City, where friends arranged for her to attend the Berkshire Music Festival. Conductor of the Boston Symphony, Serge Koussevitzky, auditioned her and called her, quote, "a musical revelation. The world must hear her," unquote. Maynor made her town hall debut in November 1939, earning very high praise from New York Times critic Olin Downs. She appeared 2 months later at Carnegie Hall, singing with the New York Philharmonic. Throughout the 1940s, she performed extensively in Europe in song recitals that featured art songs, opera arias, and Negro spirituals. She retired from the concert stage in 1963 and embarked on an important teaching career. In 1964, Maynor founded the Harlem School of the Arts, starting with just 20 students in a church basement, and this mission, quote, "What I dream of is changing the image held by the children. We've made them believe that everything beautiful is outside the community. We would like them to make beauty in our community," unquote. In this endeavor, she was so successful that by 1979, the school expanded to a facility for more than 1,000 performing and visual arts students. Establishment of the Harlem School of the Arts left a legacy even more enduring than her singing career. Here's an excerpt of Maynor singing the aria Depuis le jour from Charpentier's opera Louise, recorded in 1940. William Warfield was born in Arkansas in 1920, but grew up in Rochester, New York. In his senior year in high school, he won a national music competition, which awarded him a scholarship to the music school of his choice. He chose Eastman School of Music in Rochester and earned a bachelor's degree in 1942, after which he served in the U.S. Army during World War II. Warfield had learned German while studying music, and was assigned to Fort Ritchie, Maryland, where he expected to be trained in military intelligence. Instead, he was put in charge of stage shows. After the war, he appeared in roadshow musicals and studied with 2 European voice teachers. He had a debut recital at New York's Town Hall in March 1950 and toured Australia, where he gave 35 concerts. In 1952, during a tour sponsored by the U.S. State Department, he performed Porgy and Bess in Europe. In this production, he sang opposite Leontyne Price, and they married that year. Warfield was a versatile performer and displayed his talents as a singer, recitalist, actor, and narrator for the next several decades. He sang in some classic recordings of Handel's Messiah, appeared in television shows, Hollywood films, and Broadway musicals. From 1975 until his death, he was on the faculty of university schools of music, first at the University of Illinois and then later at Northwestern University. In 1951, Warfield sang "It Ain't Necessarily So" from Gershwin's Porgy and Bess. Note the use of scat singing, a jazz idiom that was common at that time.
Necessarily so. Wadu, simza bundu, hula wada, gariwa. Yeah. Oh, Jonah, he lived in a well. Oh, Jonah, he lived in a well. Well, he made his home in that fish's abdomen. Oh, Jonah, he lived in a well. Wadu, simza bundu, hula wada, gariwa. Yeah. Oh, 'tain't necessarily so. It ain't necessarily so. They tell all you children the devil's a villain, but 'tain't necessarily so. To get into heaven, don't snap for a 7. Live clean, don't have no fault. Oh, I take the gospel whenever it's possible, but with a grain of salt. Methuselah lived 900 years. Methuselah lived 900 years. But who calls that living when no gal will give in to no man what's 900 years? I'm preaching this sermon to show it ain't necessarily.
Mattiwilda Dobbs was born in Atlanta, Georgia in 1925 and sang in church choirs in her youth. She attended Spelman College, where she planned to be a fashion designer. Her teachers encouraged her to study music. After graduation, she moved to New York City, where she studied with a well-known German soprano. Dobbs won the prestigious Marian Anderson Award in 1947 and a John Hay Whitney Fellowship, which made it possible to further her vocal studies in Europe. She performed as a recitalist and in minor roles in opera companies and festivals in the early 1950s. In 1953, at the invitation of conductor Herbert von Karajan, she became the first African American to sing at La Scala, Milan. She sang at London's Royal Opera House from 1953 to 1958. In 1955, she was the first African American in a lead role at the San Francisco Opera. Dobbs made her debut at the Metropolitan Opera as Gilda in Verdi's Rigoletto on November 9, 1956. Art and music critic Carl van Vechten wrote that Dobbs was, quote, glorious, a warm and brilliant coloratura, the best Gilda in my experience, unquote. With this successful debut, Dobbs became the first African-American singer to be offered a long-term contract at the Met. She also continued to perform in Europe in the 1960s and retired from performing in 1974. She began teaching at the University of Texas as the first African-American on the faculty there. Here is an excerpt from Gilda's opening aria, Caro Nome, from Rigoletto, recorded in the late 1950s. Betty Allen was born in 1927 in Campbell, Ohio, where her father worked in a steel mill and her mother did laundry in their home. Her mother died when Betty was 12, and when her father became an abusive alcoholic, she had the courage and independence to leave home. She lived in a series of foster homes until she entered college. She attended the historically black Wilberforce College, where she was a classmate of Leontyne Price. They became friends, singing in the choir together. In 1951, Leonard Bernstein chose her as the soloist in a performance of his Jeremiah Symphony. 18 years later, he selected her as the mezzo-soprano soloist in the Mahler Third Symphony at his farewell concert with the New York Philharmonic. Allen was a Marian Anderson Award winner in 1952 and made her opera debut that same year in Virgil Thomson's Four Saints in Three Acts. Allen was a champion of new music and had an extensive international career that spanned 35 years. She was known for her rich tone, impeccable diction, and commanding stage presence. Critic Harold Schoenberg wrote, quote, "When she was on stage, everything came to life, and everything around her dimmed. She was marvelous. When was she not?" Unquote. Although she was highly regarded as a singer, she also had a passion for teaching. In 1979, Allen succeeded Dorothy Maynor as executive director of the Harlem School of the Arts. She was also on the faculties at the Curtis Institute in Philadelphia and North Carolina School of the Arts. In spite of her long singing career, we have very few recordings available. I'm going to play an excerpt of her singing a spiritual. Gloria Davy was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1931 to parents who had immigrated from the West Indies. She attended the New York City School of Music and Art and entered the Juilliard School of Music in 1951. In 1952, along with Betty Allen and one other singer, Davy won a Marian Anderson Award. Her professional opera debut was in a 1952 production of Virgil Thompson's Four Saints in Three Acts. Davy appeared in an international tour of Porgy and Bess from 1954 to 56. During this tour, she met conductor Victor de Sabata at La Scala Milan in 1955, and he was so impressed that he offered the title role of Aida, but that performance was canceled due to political upheaval in Italy. Her first appearance as Aida was in 1957 at the Nice Opera in France. She performed Aida in an outdoor concert in New York and made her Metropolitan Opera debut in 1958 as Aida, as the first African American in that role at the Met. She left the Met in 1961 and pursued a successful career in Europe, singing in the major opera houses in London, Vienna, Milan, and Berlin. In spite of her many appearances as Aida in the United States and Europe, I cannot find any videos, and the only audio recording is a Deutsche Grammophon album that is sung in German. This just sounds all wrong to my ear, so I'm going to show you a video of her singing the aria Visi d'arte from Puccini's Tosca. I don't know the exact date, but it was very early in her career.
Fortevo
Reri Grist was born in New York in 1932. Her parents were from the West Indies, and her first name came from a film character that her mother liked. She grew up in a low-income housing project where they could not make music inside their apartment, so her mom took her for tap dancing lessons. Grist was always singing and dancing and appeared in school musical productions. She attended New York City's High School of Music and Art. She appeared in a Broadway show at the age of 14, and in 1957 was in the original Broadway cast of West Side Story as Consuelo, where she introduced us to the song Somewhere. Grist sang at Santa Fe Opera in 1959, where she was noticed by Igor Stravinsky, who cast her in his opera Les Rossignols. She was the soloist in Leonard Bernstein's recording of the Mahler Fourth Symphony in 1960. Grist went to Europe and became the first African-American woman to become a permanent member of the Zurich Opera. She sang in many of the leading opera houses around the world for the next 31 years. In 1976, she was awarded the honorary title of Kammersängerin, chamber singer, by the Bavarian State Opera, a rare achievement for any singer. I will play an excerpt from a 1975 Royal Opera House production of Verdi's Un ballo in maschera, where she is the young male page Oscar. In the scene leading up to the masked ball, the page had delivered a letter to the king that says during the ball someone would attempt to kill him. Therefore, it is important that Oscar not divulge the costume worn by the king. In this scene, his rival pleads with Oscar to share what he knows, but he is not about to give away any secrets.
Forte, ma non verrà che parli, qui l'aspettarlo è vano. Perché? Viva si saperlo altrove. O sorte ingannatrice, prene sfuggirà di mano. Andate basso, qualcuno lo sguardo del fermò. E chi? Quello a sinistra dal breve dominò.
Io non ti lascio con maschera, mai ti nascondi.
E via. E Oscar tu sei,
Qual villania!
ma bravo, e ti par dunque convenienza questa, che mentre si redorme tu scivoli alla festa.
Il re qui!
Dove?
L'ho
Ebbene qual è?
non te dirò!
Gran cosa!
Andatelo da voi!
Or su!
E per fargli il tiro che regalaste a me!
Via, calmati! Almen dirmi del suo costume puoi.
Saper vorreste di chi si veste quando le cosa che vuol una sposa osterla
Simon Estes was born in Centerville, Iowa in 1938, the grandson of a former slave. Like many others in this anthology, his early singing was in the local Baptist church. He participated in musical activities in church and school. He entered the University of Iowa in 1957 as a pre-med student. He changed his major several times before switching to music. A faculty member got him interested in opera, and he went to the Juilliard School of Music in 1964. Because of racial barriers in the United States, Estes went to Europe and made his successful opera debut as Ramfis in Aida in Berlin in 1965. He performed at leading opera houses in Europe in the 1960s and 70s in both bass and bass baritone roles. He was praised for his Wagner roles, and in 1978 became the first black man to sing a leading role at the Bayreuth Festival as the Flying Dutchman. He was so well liked that he continued to sing at Bayreuth for the next 6 years. Estes sang numerous roles at San Francisco Opera from 1967 to 1981, but was not offered a contract at the Met until 1981. Like many of his colleagues, Estes has turned to teaching as well as humanitarian efforts. He has been active in the fight against AIDS, as well as trying to eliminate malaria in Africa. In 1985, Estes sang in a live television broadcast of Verdi's Aida. The occasion marked Leontyne Price's farewell opera performance. In this scene, Estes portrays Amonasro, the captured king of Ethiopia, and Aida's father. He asks for mercy and signals to his daughter not to give away their relationship.
Yeah.
Jessye Norman was born in Augusta, Georgia in 1945. She grew up singing in the local Baptist church and took piano lessons. In spite of her musical gifts, her parents thought it best if she did not take voice lessons, but let the voice grow and mature on its own until she entered college. Norman graduated from Howard University in 1967 with a music degree, then got her master's at the University of Michigan in 1968. She won an international singing competition in Munich in 1969, and this led to her opera debut as Elisabeth in Tannhäuser at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. But Norman did not follow a typical career path. While still singing operas that she felt suited her voice, she focused on being a recitalist and built a loyal fan base. At a Salzburg Festival concert, she was called back for 6 encores. The 1981 cult film Diva is thought to have been inspired not so much by her, but by an obsessive fan who planned his life around her concert schedule. Norman made her Metropolitan Opera debut as Cassandra in Les Troyens in 1983. The New York Times critic called her a soprano of magnificent presence who commanded the stage at every moment. Norman's list of achievements is impressive. She won 5 Grammy Awards, a Lifetime Achievement Award, over 40 honorary doctorate degrees, is a Kennedy Center honoree, and winner of the National Medal of the Arts. I'm going to play an excerpt from a live performance in 1979 of Richard Strauss's 4 Last Songs. These songs were composed at the end of his life and portray a calm acceptance of death. This song cycle is one of the most sublime pieces of music ever created. The third song, When Going to Sleep, is based on a poem by Hermann Hesse, and the text for this one stanza reads as follows: "And my soul unguarded would soar free in flight, to live life deep 1,000-fold in night's magic circle." Listen to Jessye Norman's voice soar with the text. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your interest and support. I hope to see you again for my next program on the evolution of big voices in opera, a program tentatively titled From Bel Canto to Can Belto? Stay tuned.